My mother-in-law has millions, unlike you, my daughter shouted at a family lunch. I remained silent, simply left and signed some papers in my car. A couple of hours later, I made a call that changed everything. When my daughter saw who arrived at her door, her smile simply vanished. It was a Saturday, September 14th, 2023, at 1:15 in the afternoon, at the dinner table in my modest two-bedroom ranch house in Maple Grove, Minnesota. Present were my daughter Jessica, 28, my son-in-law Tyler, 33, my two grandsons Ethan and Mason, 10 and 12, and my husband Bill, 68. The whole thing started because I mentioned I could no longer afford the $400 monthly fees for my grandson's soccer league and music lessons since my retired teacher's pension had been reduced due to budget cuts in our district. Jessica exploded like I'd never seen before. "Mom, stop being so cheap. Tyler's mother has a 4,000-square-foot house in Edina and drives a brand-new Escalade. She knows what success looks like, unlike this mediocre life you've always given us." My heart started pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. A lump formed in my throat, and my hands began trembling as I reached for my sweet tea. I looked at my embarrassed grandsons picking at their mac and cheese, then at my speechless husband who was gripping his fork like it might break. The smell of the pot roast I'd been cooking since morning suddenly made me nauseous. I thought, how could my own flesh and blood humiliate me like this after everything I've sacrificed for her? The afternoon sun was streaming through my kitchen window, hitting the family photos on the wall. Pictures of all the birthday parties I'd thrown, all the school events I'd attended, all the times I'd been there when Tyler's supposedly wealthy mother was nowhere to be found. My legs felt like jelly when I stood up from my wooden chair, the same one I'd sat in for family dinners for the past 18 years. "I see," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I grabbed my purse from the counter, that old Coach bag I'd bought myself for my 60th birthday as a rare treat, and walked toward the front door. Behind me, I heard Tyler clearing his throat uncomfortably and Ethan asking, "Why is Grandma leaving?" In my Honda Civic, with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, I pulled out some documents I'd prepared 6 months ago, but never thought I'd actually use. Legal papers that would change everything. As I signed them right there in my driveway, looking at the house where I'd raised Jessica with so much love and sacrifice, I whispered to myself, she has no idea what's coming. But what I still didn't know about Tyler's supposedly wealthy mother would change everything in ways I never imagined. What I was about to discover would make this family lunch look like a gentle disagreement. If you've ever been humiliated by someone you've given everything to, leave a comment below telling me what you would do in my situation. And if you enjoy stories about family drama and people learning hard truths, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because this story is just getting started. Let me back up a little so you understand how we got to this point. I'm Margaret, 67 years old, a retired high school math teacher from Maple Grove, Minnesota. I've lived in the same modest ranch house for 32 years, the one Bill and I bought when Jessica was just starting kindergarten. It has brown vinyl siding, a small front yard with 2 oak trees, and sits on Elm Street, where all the houses look pretty much the same. My daughter Jessica works as a sales associate at Target, making around $2,300 a month. My son-in-law Tyler sells insurance for farmers, working mostly on commission. Some months he brings home $4,000. Other months he barely scrapes together $800. They live in a rental duplex in Bloomington, about 20 minutes from my house. Here's what they don't know. Besides my $2,800 teacher's pension, I own a tutoring and educational consulting business that I started 19 years ago when Jessica was in high school. I work with struggling students and develop curriculum for private schools across the Twin Cities. I never mentioned it at home because I wanted them to learn independence and work ethic. But my little company brings in about $25,000 a month. For all these years, I've been quietly funding Jessica's life. Her community college degree in business administration, $8,000. Her wedding at the Hilton in Bloomington, $18,000. The down payment on their first car, $6,000. Monthly help with groceries, utility bills, the boys' school supplies. I've been covering it all, always telling her it came from careful budgeting of my pension. I remember specific moments that should have been red flags, Like last Christmas when Jessica opened the expensive iPad I'd bought for Mason and said, "Mom, this is nice," but Tyler's mom got Ethan the new PlayStation and a 75-inch TV. Or when she called me 3 weeks ago, frustrated, "Mom, I wish you could be more like Carol. She took Tyler and the boys to Mystic Lake Casino and spent $300 just on dinner. When's the last time you did something fun like that?" Carol, Tyler's mother. The woman Jessica constantly compared me to, always making me feel like I wasn't enough. I started noticing that Jessica only called me when she needed something, help with rent, grocery money, or covering the boys' expenses. Our conversations had become nothing but financial transactions. But here's the thing that really got to me. 2 months ago, I overheard Jessica on the phone with her friend Brittany saying, "Yeah, my mom's pretty tight with money. She's just a retired teacher, you know. But thankfully, Tyler's mom is really generous with us." The way she said, "just a retired teacher," like my 35 years of educating children, meant nothing. That's when the seed of suspicion started growing. If Carol was so wealthy, so generous, why was Jessica still calling me every week for money? After that devastating lunch, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Jessica's words. "My mother-in-law is loaded unlike you." The venom in her voice, the way she looked at me with such disgust, it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. For 3 days, I walked around my house like a ghost, barely eating, just staring at the family photos covering my living room walls. On Tuesday morning, September 17th, at exactly 7:35, I made a decision that would change everything. I was sitting at my kitchen table with my morning coffee, the same chipped blue mug I'd used for 15 years, when I picked up my phone and called my nephew Danny, who works as a private investigator in Minneapolis. "Danny, honey, it's Aunt Margaret. I need a favor, and I need you to keep this between us." "Of course, Aunt Maggie. What's going on?" "I need you to run a background check on someone named Carol Morrison. She's supposedly this wealthy woman who lives in Edina, and I need to know the truth about her financial situation." Danny's voice got serious. "Aunt Maggie, is everything okay? This doesn't sound like you. Just trust me on this one, sweetheart. I need to know everything. Where she really lives, what she really earns, what kind of debt she has. Everything." 2 days later, Danny called me back with information that made my blood run cold. I was folding laundry in my bedroom when my phone rang at 2:15 in the afternoon. "Aunt Maggie, you're not going to believe what I found. Carol Morrison didn't live in a 4,000-square-foot house in Edina like Jessica had claimed. She rented a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Richfield, paying $1,200 a month. And according to Danny's sources, she'd been late on rent 4 times in the past 6 months. The apartment complex manager had started eviction proceedings twice. The brand-new Escalade Jessica was always bragging about? Leased, and Carol was 3 months behind on payments. Her credit score was 485. She worked as a part-time receptionist at a dental office on University Avenue, making barely $1,100 a month. She had $17,000 in credit card debt spread across 6 different cards. But here's the kicker that made my stomach drop. Danny had discovered that Carol had been telling people at her work that her son Tyler was married to some wealthy retired teacher who pays for everything. She was actually taking credit for my generosity, while simultaneously allowing Jessica to believe she was the generous one providing for the family. I sat in my recliner, staring at the documents Danny had given me, feeling like the biggest fool in all of Minnesota. The afternoon sun was streaming through my living room windows, hitting the family photos that suddenly looked different to me. Every birthday party, every Christmas morning, every family dinner. Had Jessica been secretly resenting me this whole time while elevating Carol as some kind of family saint? For years, I'd been funding a complete lie. Jessica had been playing both sides, taking my money while giving Carol all the credit. And Carol? She was probably laughing at me behind my back, enjoying the lifestyle I was unknowingly providing for her son's family, while struggling to make her own rent payments. That evening, at 6:47 exactly, Jessica called me, her voice sweet as Minnesota nice. "Hey, Mom, how are you feeling? You seemed really upset when you left on Saturday, and Tyler and I have been worried about you." "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired from grading some papers." I lied, since I'd been retired for 3 years. Good, because I have some exciting news. We're planning a surprise birthday party for Carol next weekend. She's turning 62, and Tyler really wants to make it special since she's been so generous to our family. The problem is, we're a little short on funds this month. Could you help us out with maybe $800? We want to rent the community center at Oak Grove Park and get her one of those fancy cakes from Byerly's Bakery. $800 for the woman who had been taking credit for my generosity. For the woman who was supposedly so wealthy that she made my life look mediocre. For the woman who was 3 months behind on her car payments and facing eviction. Of course, honey. I'll transfer it today. Thanks, Mom. You're absolutely the best. Oh, and could you maybe contribute another $200 for decorations and flowers? Carol has really expensive taste. You know how she is. And we want everything to look perfect for her special day. $1,000 total. For a woman who was drowning in debt and lying to everyone about her financial situation. Sure, sweetheart. Anything for family. After I hung up, I sat in my living room and cried for the first time since Bill's heart attack 5 years ago. Not just little tears, deep, body-shaking sobs that came from somewhere I'd kept locked away for decades. I cried for all the sacrifices I'd made, all the times I'd gone without new clothes or vacations so Jessica could have what she needed, all the years I'd worked extra tutoring sessions on weekends to build my little business so I could help my family live better lives. I cried thinking about last Christmas when I'd given Jessica $500 for the boys' presents, and she'd spent the entire day gushing about the amazing gifts Carol had gotten them. Gifts that I'd unknowingly paid for while Carol took all the credit. The next morning, Wednesday, September 18th, I called my business partner, Linda, who's been helping me run the tutoring company for the past decade. Linda is a retired English teacher, sharp as a tack at 72, and she's seen me through every major decision in my business life. Linda, I need you to print out all our financial statements for the past 5 years. Everything. Profit and loss statements, bank statements, client contracts, tax returns, the works. I want every piece of paper that shows exactly how successful our little company has been. Is everything okay, Margaret? You sound different. I'm about to teach my daughter a lesson about gratitude that she'll never forget. Linda was quiet for a moment. Honey, what did that girl do now? I told her everything. About the lunch, about Jessica's words, about Carol's lies, about years of being treated like a financial institution instead of a loving mother and grandmother. By the time I finished, Linda was practically spitting mad. Margaret Thompson, you've been letting them walk all over you for years. I've been telling you to stand up for yourself, but you always said family comes first. Well, family does come first. But respect comes first too, and I've been getting neither. Over the next week, I became a woman on a mission. I compiled evidence like I was building a federal case. Bank statements showing every transfer I'd made to Jessica's account over the past 4 years. It totaled $112,467. Screenshots of text messages where she'd asked for money, always with some urgent excuse. Records from my tutoring business showing that I was bringing in between $20,000 and $30,000 monthly, making me far from the poor retired teacher Jessica thought I was. But I also started paying closer attention to the pattern of lies Jessica had been telling. Like when she called on Thursday, September 26th, at 3:15 in the afternoon, her voice shaking with fake distress. Mom, I hate calling and asking for help again, but I'm desperate. Tyler hasn't sold any insurance policies in 3 weeks, and we literally have no money for groceries. The boys asked me what we were having for dinner tonight, and I had to tell them I didn't know. Could you possibly help with $500? I promise we'll pay you back as soon as Tyler's luck turns around. I transferred the money immediately, like I always did. My heart broke thinking about my grandsons going hungry. But then, exactly 37 minutes later, I saw Jessica's Instagram post, a photo of her and Tyler at Chili's with the boys, all of them smiling over loaded plates of food. The caption read, "Celebrating Tyler's big sale today. Sometimes patience pays off." The timestamp showed she'd posted it just 20 minutes after hanging up with me. They weren't broke. They weren't struggling. They were using me as their personal ATM while going out to dinner and celebrating Tyler's success. The success Jessica had just told me he wasn't having. I screenshot that Instagram post and saved it to a folder I was creating on my laptop. Evidence, cold, hard evidence of their manipulation. On Friday, October 4th, I decided to do some reconnaissance of my own. I drove to Carol's apartment complex in Richfield, a place called Parkside Gardens that looked like it hadn't seen any gardening in about 20 years. The building was a faded yellow brick structure with peeling paint around the windows and cracked sidewalks leading to each unit. Carol's brand new Escalade was in the parking lot, space number 47. Let me tell you, that vehicle looked like it hadn't been washed in months. There were dents in the passenger side door, and I could see through the windshield that the interior was cluttered with fast food containers and paperwork. This was the car Jessica had described as absolutely gorgeous, and the kind of car successful people drive. I walked up to Carol's building, acting like I was visiting someone else, and noticed there was a bright orange notice taped to her apartment door. I couldn't read all of it from where I stood, but I caught the words "Final Notice" and 30 days in big block letters, probably an eviction warning or a demand for overdue rent. This was the woman Jessica held up as the family success story. This was the woman whose generosity made my contributions look pathetic. This was the woman living in a rundown apartment with eviction notices on her door. That evening, Jessica called with what would turn out to be her most audacious request yet. "Mom, I have such exciting news. Carol wants to take all of us on a family vacation to Duluth next month. She's being incredibly generous, offering to pay for the hotel rooms for everyone. You and Dad, me and Tyler, the boys. She found this beautiful resort right on Lake Superior." "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart." "I know, right? The only thing is, she asked if you could maybe help cover the gas money and meals since it's such a big group. She said she doesn't want to ask too much of you since you're on a fixed income, but she knows how much you love spending time with the boys. It would be about $1,200 total." I almost laughed out loud. Carol was planning a family vacation with my money while positioning herself as the generous benefactor who was graciously allowing me to contribute to her gift. The woman who couldn't pay her rent was inviting the family on a vacation that I would fund while she took all the credit. "That sounds lovely, honey. Let me think about it and get back to you." "Thanks, Mom. Carol was so excited when I told her you might help. She keeps saying how lucky Tyler is to have married into such a supportive family. She really appreciates that you understand how important family time is. Supportive. Not loving, not caring, not devoted. Supportive. Like I was some kind of financial institution instead of Jessica's mother who had given her everything." That night, I called my lawyer, Robert Chen, who'd helped me set up my business structure years ago. Robert has been practicing law in Minneapolis for 35 years, and he's seen every kind of family financial manipulation you can imagine. "Robert, I need some legal documents drawn up, loan agreements for money I've already given, financial statements that show my real net worth, and something that will make it crystal clear where all the money has been coming from for the past 4 years. "Margaret, what's going on? This doesn't sound like you at all. You've always been so generous with your family. I'm about to show my daughter what real generosity looks like, and what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you." The following Tuesday, October 8th, at 11:23 in the morning, Jessica called with another emergency that would turn out to be the final straw. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. Mason needs braces. The orthodontist says his bite is getting worse, and we need to act now before it causes permanent damage. Our insurance will cover part of it, but they want $3,000 up front for the initial work." "Oh my, that's a lot of money." "I know, but here's the amazing part. Tyler's mom already offered to help. She said she'd cover half of the cost if you could handle the other half." "Isn't that generous? She really wants to help Mason, and she knows how much you care about the boy's health." Half. Carol was offering to pay half of $3,000, $1,500 that she absolutely didn't have based on Danny's investigation, while expecting me to pay the other half. It was brilliant manipulation, really. She got credit for being generous while I did all the actual paying. "Honey, that's wonderful that Carol wants to help. Let me talk to the orthodontist directly about payment plans and see what our options are. Oh, that's okay, Mom. Carol already set everything up. She has a relationship with this orthodontist, Dr. Harrison, on Grand Avenue. Apparently, she's used him before for her other grandchildren, so she knows he does good work. What other grandchildren? Tyler was Carol's only child, according to everything Danny had found. There were no other children, no other grandchildren. The lies were getting deeper and more ridiculous by the day. That's great that she has experience with him. Let me just call his office to understand the payment schedule. Sure, Mom. His office number is 651-29-84477. They're expecting to hear from you. That afternoon, I called Dr. Harrison's office myself. Hi, I'm Margaret Thompson, and I'm calling about my grandson Mason's orthodontic treatment. I understand Carol Morrison has set up some kind of payment arrangement? The receptionist sounded confused. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't see any Carol Morrison in our system. The only contact we have for Mason Thompson's treatment is his mother, Jessica, and she mentioned that his grandmother, which I assume is you, would be handling the financial arrangements. She said you're very involved in the boy's healthcare decisions. Another lie. Complete fabrication. Carol hadn't spoken to any orthodontist. She didn't have a relationship with Dr. Harrison. She'd never brought other grandchildren to his practice because she didn't have any other grandchildren. She was just taking credit for arrangements I was making with my own money while spinning an elaborate fiction about her involvement. I hung up the phone and felt something fundamental shift inside me. Not sadness anymore, not hurt, not disappointment. Pure, white-hot determination. These people had been playing games with my love, my generosity, and my family relationships for years. They'd turned me into a walking ATM, a fool who could be manipulated with sob stories and fake emergencies while they lived their lives and gave credit to someone else. They'd taken my sacrifices and made them invisible. They'd taken my love and made it conditional. They'd taken my generosity and made it expected rather than appreciated. That evening, I started planning something Jessica and Tyler, and especially Carol, would never see coming. I was going to show them exactly who the loaded grandmother really was, and it wasn't going to be pretty for any of them. I spent the next hour on my laptop creating a PowerPoint presentation that would lay out 4 years of financial records, bank transfers, and lies. Every dollar I'd given, every excuse they'd used, every time Carol had taken credit for my generosity. I was building a case that would be impossible to deny or explain away. The next few weeks would reveal truths that would shake this family to its core. And for the first time in months, thinking about confronting their manipulation and lies made me smile. If you've ever discovered that someone was taking credit for your generosity while you were being treated like you weren't enough, let me know in the comments how you handled it. Because what I was planning was about to change everything. For the next 2 weeks, I transformed into someone I didn't recognize. A strategic, calculating woman who was done being played for a fool. Every morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I was going to orchestrate the most educational family gathering in Thompson history. On Wednesday, October 9th, I called Robert Chen again. Robert, I need you to prepare something special. I want legal documentation of every loan I've made to Jessica over the past 4 years, with interest calculated at the current rate. I also need a formal demand letter for repayment. Margaret, are you sure about this? Once we put things in legal terms, family relationships can be permanently damaged. Robert, my relationship with my daughter has already been damaged. She just doesn't know it yet. By Friday, I had a manila folder thick with evidence. Bank statements showing transfers totaling $112,467. Text message screenshots of Jessica's emergencies, followed by social media posts showing them living their best life. Danny's investigation into Carol's real financial situation. My business financial statements showing my actual net worth of over $800,000. But I wasn't done yet. I needed witnesses. People who could see this confrontation happen and verify that I wasn't the mean, cheap mother Jessica would inevitably paint me as. I called my sister Patricia in Duluth. Pat, I need you to drive down here next weekend. I'm having a family meeting, and I need someone in my corner who's known Jessica since she was born. What's going on, Maggie? Your niece has been lying to me, manipulating me, and humiliating me for years. And I'm about to show her what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. Patricia arrived on Saturday afternoon, October 19th, driving her Honda Pilot and carrying a casserole that could feed 12 people. She took one look at my face and said, "Honey, you look like you're planning a war." I am, and I'm going to win. That evening, Jessica called with yet another request. Mom, Tyler's mom wants to host a family dinner next Sunday at her place. She's so excited to finally have everyone together. She wants to cook this elaborate meal and really show off her hospitality. The only thing is, she asked if you could bring some side dishes and maybe contribute toward the groceries since she's providing the main course and her beautiful home. Her beautiful home. The cramped apartment in Richfield with eviction notices on the door. That sounds lovely, sweetheart. What time should we be there? She said 4 o'clock. And Mom? Could you maybe dress nicely? Carol always looks so put together, and I want our family to make a good impression. I want our family to make a good impression, like I was some embarrassing relative who needed to be managed. Of course, honey. I'll make sure to look my best. After I hung up, Patricia looked at me with concern. Maggie, what are you planning? I'm planning to show up to Carol's beautiful home with some very interesting documentation. And I'm planning to ask some very pointed questions about where all this family generosity has really been coming from. Sunday morning, October 20th, I woke up at 6:30 and spent 2 hours getting ready. I put on my best navy blue dress, the one I'd bought for Jessica's wedding and had worn maybe 3 times since. I did my hair, put on makeup, and wore the pearl necklace Bill had given me for our 25th anniversary. Patricia helped me load my car with what looked like innocent side dishes and a small overnight bag. What Jessica didn't know was that the bag contained a portable projector, my laptop, and enough documentation to expose 4 years of lies. At 3:45, we pulled into the Parkside Gardens apartment complex in Richfield. I watched Patricia's face as she took in the faded yellow brick building, the cracked sidewalks, and the overflowing dumpsters. This is the mansion Jessica's been bragging about? Wait until you see the rest of it. We walked up to apartment 4B and I knocked on the door at exactly 4 o'clock. Carol answered, and I got my first real look at the woman who had been the source of so much family drama. She was about 5'4", with bleached blonde hair that needed touching up at the roots, wearing a polyester dress from Walmart that she'd tried to dress up with a fake pearl necklace. "You must be Margaret. I'm Carol, Tyler's mother. Welcome to my home." Behind her, I could see Jessica and Tyler sitting on a worn brown couch in what was clearly a small living room. The apartment smelled like pine sol and something vaguely musty. The carpet was that industrial beige color that's supposed to hide stains, but just looks dirty instead. "Thank you for having us, Carol. This is my sister Patricia." "Wonderful. Tyler has told me so much about your family. Please, come in and make yourselves comfortable." The elaborate meal Carol had supposedly prepared was clearly takeout from Applebee's, still in the containers, arranged on paper plates. The beautiful home was a cramped 2-bedroom apartment with furniture that looked like it came from a garage sale. Jessica jumped up to hug me, and I noticed she was wearing a new dress I'd never seen before. "Mom, you look beautiful. Doesn't Carol's place have such a cozy feel? She's been working so hard to make everything perfect for today." I looked around at the cramped space, at Carol beaming like she'd accomplished something magnificent, at Tyler looking uncomfortable in the corner, and at my grandsons Ethan and Mason playing with handheld video games on the floor. "It's very intimate," I said carefully. We sat down to eat, and Carol immediately launched into what was clearly a rehearsed speech about family values and the importance of multiple generations supporting each other. "You know, Margaret, I've always believed that when families work together, everyone benefits. I try to contribute what I can to Tyler and Jessica's household, and I know you do the same from your end. I contribute what I can." Like she was making some kind of meaningful financial contribution instead of taking credit for mine. "That's interesting, Carol. What kind of contributions do you typically make?" Jessica jumped in quickly. "Oh, Carol's always helping out. Remember the boys' soccer fees? And she helped with Mason's school supplies. and she's always taking them out for special dinners and experiences. Every single thing Jessica mentioned was something I had actually paid for. Carol was nodding along like she deserved credit for my generosity. "That's wonderful," I said. "Carol, you must do very well for yourself to be so generous with the family." Carol's smile faltered slightly. "Well, you know, I believe in living life to the fullest. Money is meant to be shared with people you love." Money she didn't have, shared from an account that was constantly overdrawn. After we finished eating, I stood up and cleared my throat. "Carol, Jessica, Tyler, I have something I'd like to share with everyone. Patricia, would you help me get my bag from the car?" When we returned, I had my laptop and portable projector. I thought this would be a good time to show everyone some family financial information that I think will be very educational. Jessica looked confused. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I'm going to show everyone exactly where all this family generosity has really been coming from." I set up the projector and opened my PowerPoint presentation. The first slide simply said, 4 years of family financial truth. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Carol's face went pale. Jessica looked like she was about to panic. "Let's start with some basic facts," I said, clicking to the next slide. "Carol, you told everyone you live in a beautiful home in Edina. This address in Richfield suggests otherwise." The slide showed Danny's investigation results. Carol's real address, her real income, her credit score, her debt situation. Jessica's mouth fell open. "Mom, what is this? Why are you embarrassing Carol?" "I'm not embarrassing anyone, sweetheart. I'm just sharing some interesting information I've discovered. Let's move on to the financial contributions." Click. The next slide showed bank records. Every transfer I'd made to Jessica's account over 4 years. $112,467. This is where your family's financial support has actually been coming from. Not from Carol's generosity, but from my tutoring business that brings in $20,000 to $30,000 monthly. Tyler stood up. "Margaret, I don't understand what you're trying to prove here." "Sit down, Tyler, I'm not finished." Click. The next slide showed Jessica's text messages asking for money, paired with her social media posts showing them enjoying the money I'd given them. Here we can see a pattern. Jessica asks me for emergency funds, claiming poverty and desperation. Then, within hours, she posts photos of the family enjoying themselves at restaurants, stores, and entertainment venues. Jessica was crying now. "Mom, you're making it sound like we were trying to deceive you. Weren't you?" Click. The next slide was titled, "The Carol Morrison Deception." Let's talk about how Carol has been taking credit for my financial support while facing eviction from this apartment and defaulting on her car loan. Carol stood up abruptly. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this." "Actually, you do, because according to my investigation, you've been telling people at your work that Tyler married into a wealthy family and that you're the one supporting their lifestyle. You've been taking credit for money you never gave while I've been treated like a financial burden." The room was completely silent, except for Mason asking Ethan in a whisper what was happening. "Carol, show everyone your bank statements. Show them your credit card bills. Show them the eviction notices on your door. Show them your real financial situation." Carol grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I'm not staying here for this humiliation." "Running away won't change the truth," I called after her. "And it won't change the fact that you owe my daughter an apology for years of lies." Tyler ran after his mother, leaving Jessica alone with me, Patricia, and the boys. Jessica was sobbing. "Mom, I had no idea about Carol's situation. She always acted like she was doing well financially. But you knew I wasn't wealthy, Jessica. You knew I was just a retired teacher. Yet you constantly compared me to her, made me feel like I wasn't enough, and humiliated me in front of the entire family. I never meant to hurt you, but you did hurt me. Deeply. And you did it while I was bankrolling your entire lifestyle." I packed up my projector and laptop while Jessica cried at the kitchen table. Patricia helped me gather our things, and we headed for the door. "Mom, please don't leave like this. Can't we talk about this?" I turned back to look at my daughter, really look at her, for the first time in months. "Jessica, when you're ready to have an honest conversation about gratitude, respect, and family relationships, you know where to find me. Until then, the Bank of Mom is permanently closed. As we walked to the car, I could hear Jessica crying behind us. Part of me wanted to turn around, comfort her, and pretend none of this had ever happened. But a bigger part of me, the part that had been growing stronger for weeks, knew that sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices. If you've ever had to make someone face hard truths about their behavior, leave a comment telling me how you handled it. Because walking away from that apartment was one of the hardest and most necessary things I'd ever done. The drive home from Carol's apartment was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Patricia sat in the passenger seat, occasionally glancing at me with a mixture of pride and concern. Neither of us spoke until we pulled into my driveway on Elm Street. Maggie, that was either the bravest thing you've ever done or the most devastating. I can't decide which. I turned off the engine and sat there for a moment, looking at my modest ranch house with its brown vinyl siding and small front yard. For the first time in years, it looked beautiful to me. It looked like home, not like the mediocre life Jessica had accused me of providing. It was necessary, Pat. I've been enabling their disrespect for too long. That evening, my phone started ringing at 6:47. Jessica, of course. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 7:15, 7:33, 8:02, and 8:28. Each voicemail more desperate than the last. Mom, please call me back. I'm so sorry. I had no idea about Carol's real situation. Please, we need to talk. Mom, Tyler's devastated about his mother's lies. He said he never knew she was taking credit for your help. Please don't shut us out. Mom, the boys are asking why you left so upset. I don't know what to tell them. Please just call me back. I didn't return any of the calls that night. Instead, Patricia and I sat on my front porch with glasses of wine, watching the sunset and talking about family, boundaries, and self-respect. You know what the hardest part is, I told her. I still love her. I still want to help her, but I can't keep being treated like an ATM instead of a mother. The next morning, Monday, October 21st, I woke up feeling something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't wondering when Jessica would call asking for money. I wasn't worrying about how to stretch my budget to help with another emergency. I wasn't questioning my worth as a mother based on someone else's definition of generosity. At 9:30, my phone rang. It was Tyler. Margaret, I owe you a massive apology. I had no idea my mother was lying about our family's financial situation. Jessica showed me all the bank records, and I'm horrified by how much you've been helping us while my mom took credit. Tyler, this isn't just about Carol taking credit. This is about respect, honesty, and gratitude. Your wife humiliated me in front of the entire family, and neither of you seemed to think that was a problem. You're absolutely right. We took your generosity for granted, and we let my mother's lies poison how we saw your contributions. I don't know how to make this right. You start by being honest about everything. No more emergencies that aren't really emergencies. No more taking money from me while giving credit to someone else. And no more treating me like I'm not enough. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Margaret, Jessica wants to see you. She's been crying since yesterday, and she keeps saying she never realized how much you've sacrificed for us. When she's ready to have a conversation about rebuilding our relationship based on mutual respect, she knows where to find me. But I won't be manipulated anymore, Tyler. Those days are over. I hung up and spent the rest of the morning working on my tutoring business, something I'd been neglecting while constantly handling Jessica's financial crises. It felt good to focus on my own work, my own success, my own life. Wednesday afternoon, October 23rd. I was grading practice SAT tests when I heard a knock at my front door. Through the window, I could see Jessica standing on my porch, holding what looked like a manila folder. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red and puffy, her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing an old sweater I recognized from high school. This wasn't the polished, demanding daughter who had screamed at me about Carol's superiority. This was someone who had been forced to confront some uncomfortable truths. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Mom, I know you probably don't want to see me, but I need to show you something. She held up the folder. I've been going through our finances, really looking at them for the first time. I documented every time you helped us over the past 4 years, and I calculated what we actually owe you. I took the folder and opened it. Inside were handwritten lists, organized by date, showing every transfer I'd made to their accounts. Jessica had added up the totals, calculated interest, and written at the bottom, "Total debt to Mom, 118,742.33. Jessica, I never asked you to. Mom, please let me finish. I also called Carol yesterday." My eyebrows shot up. "You called her? After what happened Sunday?" "I confronted her about everything. About the lies, about taking credit for your generosity, about letting us believe she was financially successful while you were supposedly struggling." Jessica's voice broke. "Mom, she admitted it. She said she was jealous of how much Tyler respected you and wanted us to think she was successful too. She's been living paycheck to paycheck for years, borrowing money to keep up appearances, and letting us believe her fake stories about helping our family." I stepped back and looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. The entitlement was gone. The demanding attitude was gone. What I saw was genuine remorse and, for the first time in years, humility. "Come in," I said quietly. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where this whole mess had started with that devastating family lunch. Jessica reached across and took my hands. "Mom, I need to tell you something that's going to be hard to hear. For the past few years, I've been resentful of you." "Resentful? Of me?" "I was jealous of my friends whose parents seemed to have more money, who could afford bigger houses and fancier cars and expensive vacations. I looked at our life and thought, you weren't successful enough, weren't generous enough, weren't enough." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I convinced myself that Carol represented what I deserved. A wealthy, generous mother figure who could give us the lifestyle I thought we should have. I let myself believe her lies because they made me feel better about resenting you." I felt tears starting in my eyes, but I wasn't ready to let my guard down completely. "Jessica, I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I started my own business to help support your family. I've given you over $100,000 in 4 years. How could you possibly think I wasn't generous enough? Because I was selfish and ungrateful and stupid. Because I was so focused on what I thought we deserved that I couldn't see what we actually had. Because I let someone else's fake success story make me ashamed of my own mother's real sacrifices." She pulled out another piece of paper from the folder. "I wrote this for you. It's every sacrifice I can remember you making for me, starting from when I was little." I unfolded the paper and saw 3 pages of handwritten memories in Jessica's neat penmanship. "When I was 7 and wanted ballet lessons, you worked extra tutoring sessions on Saturdays to pay for them. When I was 12 and broke my arm, you took unpaid leave from teaching to stay home with me, even though money was tight. When I was 16 and wanted a car, you drove your old Honda for 3 more years so you could buy me a used Corolla. When I was 22 and couldn't afford my wedding dress, you used your Christmas bonus to buy it instead of getting the new refrigerator you needed." The list went on for 3 pages. Memories I'd forgotten, sacrifices I'd made without thinking twice, moments when I'd chosen Jessica's happiness over my own comfort. By the time I finished reading, we were both crying. "Mom, I don't know how to undo the hurt I've caused. I don't know how to apologize for years of taking you for granted. But I want to try. What about Carol? What about your need for a wealthy, successful mother figure?" Jessica's face hardened slightly. "Carol is a liar and a manipulator who took advantage of our family's generosity. I told her yesterday that she's not welcome in our lives anymore until she gets professional help for her financial problems and her dishonesty." Tyler agreed completely. "And what about your lifestyle? Your expectations? Your resentment about not having more?" "Mom, for the first time in years, I looked at our actual budget. Do you know what I discovered? With all your help, we've been living like a family that makes twice what Tyler and I actually earn. We've been living above our means while complaining that it wasn't enough." She reached into her purse and pulled out a cut-up credit card. "I canceled this yesterday. We're going to learn to live within our actual income, not the income your generosity created for us." I stared at the pieces of plastic on my kitchen table. "Jessica, I never wanted you to struggle. I wanted to help. I know. And your help was beautiful and generous and came from love. But we turned it into an expectation instead of a gift. We stopped being grateful and started being demanding. That has to change. We sat in silence for a few minutes, both of us processing years of misunderstanding and hurt. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you ever tell us about your business success? Why did you let us think you were struggling financially? I thought about that question for a long moment. Because I wanted you to be independent. I wanted you to work hard and appreciate what you earned. I was afraid that if you knew how well my business was doing, you'd become dependent on my money instead of building your own lives. But we became dependent anyway. Yes, you did. And I enabled that by always saying yes to every request, always bailing you out of every financial problem, always making your crises my emergencies. Jessica nodded slowly. So what happens now? How do we rebuild this relationship? We start with honesty. Complete honesty. No more fake emergencies, no more manipulation, no more taking my help for granted. If you need assistance, you ask respectfully and you explain exactly what it's for. And you understand that no is a complete answer. And the money we owe you? I looked at the folder again, at Jessica's careful calculations, at the staggering total that represented 4 years of unacknowledged sacrifice. We'll work out a payment plan. Something reasonable that doesn't destroy your budget, but acknowledges that my generosity wasn't free money. It was a loan that needs to be repaid. Mom, at our current income, it would take us 15 years to pay you back. Then it takes 15 years. Maybe that will help you remember the value of what you received. Jessica nodded, accepting the reality of her situation without complaint or manipulation. There's something else, she said quietly. The boys have been asking about what happened on Sunday. They know something changed, and they're worried they did something wrong. What did you tell them? I told them that Grandma Margaret had been very generous to our family for a long time, and that Mommy hadn't been as grateful as she should have been. I told them we're going to learn better ways to show appreciation and respect. How did they take that? Ethan asked if we were poor now. Mason asked if you were still going to be their grandma. I told them that money doesn't make people poor or rich. How we treat the people we love does. And that you'll always be their grandma. But we need to rebuild trust with you. For the first time since that awful family lunch, I felt my heart softening toward my daughter. Jessica, I want you to understand something. I didn't cut you off to punish you. I cut you off because I love you too much to watch you become someone who takes people for granted. I want you to be better than that. I want to be better than that too, Mom. Will you help me learn how? I reached across the table and took her hands again, feeling the calluses that had developed since she'd started working extra shifts to make up for my financial support. We'll figure it out together. But it starts with respect, gratitude, and honesty. Every day, in every interaction. Over the next few months, Jessica and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. She got a second job at a local bookstore, working evenings and weekends to increase their income. Tyler expanded his insurance business and started taking real estate courses to create additional income streams. They moved to a smaller, more affordable apartment and learned to budget carefully. Most importantly, Jessica started calling me just to talk, not to ask for money, but to share stories about the boys, to ask for advice, to maintain our relationship as mother and daughter rather than creditor and debtor. The first time she called just to say, "I love you," and hang up, I cried for 20 minutes. It took 8 months for Jessica to make her first payment toward the debt she owed me. $200 that represented real sacrifice from their tight budget. When I deposited that check, I felt prouder than I had when she graduated from college. Today, 18 months after that confrontational family dinner, our relationship is stronger than it's been since Jessica was a child. She's learned the value of money, the importance of gratitude, and the difference between being supported and being enabled. Tyler never speaks to his mother anymore. Her lies destroyed their relationship permanently. But he's become a respectful, hard-working son-in-law who treats me with genuine appreciation. And my grandsons? They've learned that real wealth isn't measured in cars or houses or expensive toys. It's measured in love, respect, and family relationships built on truth rather than manipulation. The most beautiful part of this whole experience is that Jessica now understands what I was trying to teach her all along. That the greatest gift a parent can give their child isn't money. It's the strength, character, and values that will serve them long after the money is gone. If this story touched your heart, or if you've ever had to make tough choices about enabling versus helping the people you love, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what you learned from my experience. And if you enjoyed this story about family, forgiveness, and finding your strength, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more real stories of people who refuse to be taken for granted. Now watch the next story that's coming up on your screen. It's about a woman who discovered her best friend had been sabotaging her marriage for years and how she got the most perfect revenge.